What's going on, people, and welcome to Man Knows Football. You are here with myself, Guni, and my special guest today, Dan Potts, making his debut on the Man Knows Football channel. I have been on the 12th Man podcast. That is Dan's platform. If you are not following that, please make sure you do. I've linked his name inside the title of this video. So once you're done here, click on there, give my brother a subscribe. Very, very knowledgeable about football. It's just a shame he supports Arsenal, but still, you get me, an opinion that I respect very much. Dan, how you doing today, my bro?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. Much appreciated. Love what you're doing, and obviously, big fan of my guy Troops. So, of course, we're gonna be friends if you're friends with Troops, man. Do you know what I'm saying? So, listen, it's all good. I'm looking forward to this weekend. I know we've got games European wise before this, but this is always the one I look forward to against Chelsea. So, I'm gonna get into this one with you because it's probably been over the last couple of years. I would say not the tides have turned in terms of how big the clubs have both been, because Arsenal have been miles behind, but in terms of the results, it's kind of shocked me the last couple of years, man. So be interesting to see what happens this time.
Yeah, you guys have been, getting better results over at Stamford Bridge over the past few seasons. We ain't got a win over you for the longest. The last memory that I have is, was it last season? No, that was a while ago, where it was either Jorginho or Kante gave away the ball and Martinelli scored.
Yeah,
That wasn't
Kante
last.
slipped and Martinelli. That was a couple of years ago now.
Yeah, that wasn't
um
last season. What happened last season? Oh, that was the Nketiah.
Last season was the Nketiah one,
Oh,
which
mate.
literally I've never seen two teams defend so poorly in my life. Like, it was mad, like 4-2. But yeah, I think that when Christensen gave him the ball, I was like, I can't believe one that's happened. And then after that,
Yeah,
it's
now I
just the
remember.
madness.
Yeah,
Remember,
yeah,
it was
now I
just a
remember.
mad thing.
There's just been so much trauma at the bridge with Arsenal that I just mix and match my memories, people. So forgive me. But this weekend, Sunday, obviously a big game. I've looked at the lineup for us today in the Champions League. We will be playing Dynamo at home. I haven't done a preview for it. Like, people, like, I've been very busy with my job and trying to balance this out. But today we look like we're resting players. Zacharia's actually making his club debut. Me and Dan were just talking about him just off the camera. Hold on. My kids sound like they're fighting, Dan. Can you just hold the fort for 1
Oh
second while I
man, it's
go and
calm,
sort that
man.
out?
It's calm.
1 sec.
You go do that, man. It's because, do you know what it is? Basically, what it is because they want to support Arsenal. They're fighting over that Arsenal and Chelsea shirt. Do you know what I'm saying? They both want the Arsenal shirt. That's what it is, Goonie. Do you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I was just talking about Zakaria, people, because I actually think it would be interesting to see this guy. I think if he's starting tonight, that's the one player you should be looking at, because you don't have a Thomas Partey, a Rodri, figure for me. I think with Jorginho, you've got a player who can anchor that midfield, but he's not in the same level of quality, in my opinion. I think Kante is on the decline of a footballer, and I think Dennis Zakaria is going to be a player that could probably look to emulate one of those positions. I just don't know what level he's at, so that's why I'm more interested to see that. I don't think there's really any other option other than Thomas Tuchel seeming to want to play a double pivot with Conor Gallagher. I didn't really see how that was going to work. And Ruben Loftus-Cheek, for me, I just don't know if that's the answer going forward. So that midfield is massive, and I think Dennis Zakaria can be a real opportunity for you to see what this guy's about more than anything. But if it is anything that looks half decent, then it could be there could be a place for him in the team. You just don't know.
Zakaria, this is the thing with him. His profile is what was needed, is what I was screaming out for, saying, get us a midfielder, a CDM that can just hold that position down, where we're not getting bypassed all the time. Also, a player that knows he's got a range of short passing, long passing to just help that transition that's so slow in this Chelsea team. I've had my criticisms about Jorginho. I feel rightly so. On games that suit him, he can have an excellent game. But in terms of consistency, when it comes to physicality and things like that, once you press him, he's out of the game, because he's not press. He can't hold up the ball. He can't evade the press. He's not strong enough. These are things that are key, and we've got no backup to Jorginho whatsoever. We've got no natural DM in this squad. We actually don't. Some people will say, well, Jorginho plays at the base of the midfield. Okay, I'll give you that, but he's more of a regista, if you want to call him that. Do you know what I mean? He's not that physical DM type, and I think that's where we're going massively wrong in the Prem. And I'm hearing that Graham Potter is even thinking about extending his contract, which I don't think needs to be done. But going into this weekend, though, Dan, I know we ain't kicked a ball today, I'm just a bit encouraged. The only thing I'm encouraged is that players are getting their rest. But I hate to say this, especially as a Chelsea fan, bro. My confidence, and for me to give any footballing reason to anybody here as to how or why we're going to win this game, I'm struggling because you guys have been playing so well. The balance in your squad is brilliant. Players, the biggest thing for me, what impressed me the most about Reece Nelson coming in and scoring the way he did, is that it showed me that you've got a system that is working so fluidly that your fringe players can come in and still do a job, still get goals, still get assists, and everything's working well. We're struggling to string 5, 6 passes together, go in the correct direction, Dan. So this is where my concern is. I'm massively concerned. But on the flip side, it is a London derby, Chelsea versus Arsenal, and form does go out of the window. And you guys have shown it several times in the past. You guys might not be playing the best football up until that fixture, but when it's time to play and the whistle goes, you guys put in some of your best performances. And that's really all I'm hoping for. But speaking of Europe, I know you've got a game tomorrow. My first question for you is, are you guys through already? Or do you have to get a draw to go through?
We've qualified, but we need to win the group because PSV beat us the other night, and we're playing Zurich and Bodo Glimt, and they're just easy to beat basically. So PSV and Arsenal have clearly got through quite comfortably. However, if PSV do manage to beat Bodo and we lose to Zurich, then we will come second. But obviously, we want to try and win the group so we don't have to play the extra Europa games. So we're going to go all out to win tomorrow. The only thing I will say is I still feel that Zurich, I don't think they've won a game. So for me, even with our second string or either 4 or 5 changes, I'd still fancy us to get through. So I don't think Arteta will go completely weak, but at the same time, I don't expect to see the side that played Nottingham Forest playing against Zurich tomorrow night, man.
So do you reckon you're going to feel like a weaker team tomorrow?
Yeah, I think we'll see. I mean, Ramsdale's our only keeper at the moment because Turner's got an injury. But other than that, I expect to see players like Rob Holding, maybe Cedric. I expect to see some of the mixtures of the Kieran Tierney's of this world that come in now that we've got Zinchenko and Tomiyasu playing at left back. I expect to see Lokonga and Fabio Vieira. I expect to see Nelson after his couple of goals the other night. I expect to see Marquinhos, and I expect to see Eddie Nketiah. So if I'm honest with you, mate, there's probably only Granit Xhaka, maybe Gabriel or Saliba to partner Rob Holding and Kieran Tierney, along with the goalkeeper in Ramsdale, that will probably be looked to play in both Thursday and against you guys on Sunday. So I expect to see a rotated side on Thursday, bro. Yeah.
Man, I know you must be feeling confident going into this game off the back of absolutely slapping Nottingham Forest 5-0. And what I will say is that, some people might say bottom of the league, Nottingham Forest, but I feel it's slightly disrespectful because in the Premier League, there's no game that's ever a gimme. They're all difficult games. And as you saw the week before, the game they had before that, they played Liverpool. Granted, they're not in the best form, but most times out of 10, if you're going to ask people who is going to get a result in that game, they'll tell you Liverpool, and rightly so. They went and got a result. So for you guys to get that 5-0, fair play to you lot. Bro, the more I just think about this, because we've got no Reece James. Koulibaly's coming back from injury. Cucurella is struggling in that left centre-back position. It's just a mess at Chelsea at the minute. And some might blame Graham Potter and say, oh, Graham Potter is out of his depth. No, I've said countless times, whether this is Graham Potter or Pep Guardiola or Alex Ferguson, the squad that we have is not going to be pushing any manager's not winning a title with it. That's my honest opinion. But just going into that weekend, where do you feel the areas where you're strongest at, and where do you think that we can be got at?
I think in most of the games that Xhaka, Partey and Ødegaard have played together, we've always dominated the midfield. And that's the area, again, that I think we can get at you. You've already mentioned the midfield being the issue. But I do look at our front three at the moment, and it looks just a menace. Like all 3 of them, they're all scoring goals. I know Jesus is the one at the moment that isn't, believe it or not. I think it's been 6 goals now. The last goal he scored was North London derby. However, he's been setting them up, and he's been going mad. He does so much on the ball, Guni, and off the ball. He's unreal, this guy, man. I've never actually realised how good he was until I've seen him playing week in, week out, not just every other game at Man City, in and out the side. I think with Saka, there's obviously doubts whether he's going to be fit, but I'm hearing today that he's in training. It looking good. Martinelli has been on a different level this season since Jesus has come in. So I think we've definitely got players that can hurt you. But having said that, bro, there's two things that worry me about this weekend. One of them is your manager. I don't
Mhm.
remember the last time we beat Graham Potter. And I know it was at Brighton, but they used to always get results against us. We drew to them last year, lost to them at home again last year. Season before that, lost to them at home. Season before that, lost to them at home. Drew at their place. I think we beat them 2 years ago in COVID away from their place, at their place, sorry, with nobody in the ground. And that was a 2-0. That's the last time I think we've beaten Brighton under Graham Potter. So I know Graham Potter is looking at this fixture and probably fancying to try and get something because it's against us. I really like your manager, man. And I'm not going to sit there and say that he's to blame. But when you're playing Sterling and Pulisic as wing backs, I'm starting to question what's happening. If I'm honest with you, because I don't see either of those as wing backs anywhere near it. Now that begs the question: why is he doing that? Is that because you're struggling at the moment to fit a system? You're struggling to fit personnel in. It looks to me at Chelsea that on paper you've got some really nice names, but I'm not so sure they all fit into the puzzle yet. I think Aubameyang is a great elite striker in terms of his finishing, but he will need a system to fit into it. Havertz, I think, is turning into a little bit of a Pepe or Sancho for the amount of money you spent on him. I know he scored the other day, but I don't look at him and go, wow, what a signing.
Yeah,
Pulisic is
I
not
don't disagree with
really.
you at all on that one. I don't disagree at all.
Yeah, I think Pulisic for me, likewise, was a lot of money. I don't really think that he's cut the mustard. But again, Sterling is a wicked player who's Premier League proven and looks nice on paper. So I think you've got some really good players on paper, but actually as a team at the moment, I don't see a team at Chelsea. I think that it's within transition period that probably has switched places, believe it or not, in a little amount of time between what Arsenal were a couple of seasons ago trying to start again. I think Chelsea are trying to start again with a new manager and some new players. And maybe it's a good time to play you, but there's never any good time to play Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, bro, because I remember over the years doing some damage to Arsenal. I can also remember some good times, man. You just never know what's going to happen in football. And, you know, you mentioned something really interesting earlier about Reece Nelson coming into the side and scoring and looking good. The only reason he's doing that is because the first 11 were around him. When you've not got that first 11 around him, he will look as bad as him.
Yeah,
I mean, we
yeah.
make 3 or 4 changes, bruv, and we look like Wigan. Like, honestly, it is that bad, bruv. There is so many poor players sitting on our bench at the moment that it worries me in terms of strength and depth. So when people say to me at Arsenal title challenges, the only way I'll say yes is if we do something in January, because at the moment we ain't, because our squad is mad. We've got about 13 players. You can't win a title
Yeah,
with
you
13
can't win a
players.
title with that. And you know what? You're actually one of the first fans outside of a Chelsea fan to actually recognize what's going on at my club. Because believe it or not, even my fan base, they struggle to understand the fact that we are not a complete team. We are still heavily in a transition. They don't take into consideration, we were impacted by the transfer bans and all that. There was, we've had to bring in new owners. They've had to bring in their own staff. We've had to get rid of existing staff that have been at the club for over a decade and so on and so forth. There's a lot of massive structural changes. Some of it obviously translated on the pitch. I think we got away with a lot last season, even finishing top 4 under those circumstances. And I think this is the season where, I'm taking it as if it's a step backwards to go forwards, because I understand what's coming. It's a rebuild. So in terms of us getting top 4 this season, again, this might even surprise you, bruv. I'm not really going to be up in arms about it if we don't get it. I'm not going to say Graham Potter out. What would make me question Graham Potter is if he's making obvious and blatant stupid decisions
Facts.
on the pitch. That's the only way. Now, the play in the two wing backs, in the attacking wing backs against Brighton, I even said I think that was very naive of him to do. He felt that it worked against Salzburg away, where we played some of our best football all season. I just said you can't do that in the Premier League. You've got to respect teams. The press is a lot more organized and a lot more intense in the Premier League. And like I said to you before, there's no gimmies in the Prem, and Brighton are an excellent team, especially on the transition. That's one of their strengths. Excellent on the transition, and that's how they killed us every single time. They just hit us on the transition, or it was a mistake of our making. And these results are going to keep on coming. I'm just hoping it's not this weekend, for my own selfish reasons, because obviously I've got to go back again, and I'm going to have to hear it like literally until the next time we play, and still hope that we beat you at the Emirates. But again, I'm not really holding my breath too much. But you know what, Dan? Yeah, I feel because we're so desperate for a win that we might even come out with a point in this game. I feel really strange about it. I know, and that's not saying that your team is a bad team or it's a false image, because you lot are playing the best football, you're playing excellent football, 100%. No one can deny that. But it just smells to me like one of those games where it might be we might frustrate you a little bit. You know, you might have a couple chances. We're definitely gonna have chances, but we're not gonna take them where we should. And I just feel it's gonna be a Man United Chelsea all over again, where it's gonna be 1-1. It's not going to do us any favors because that's now 4 games with no wins. We're desperate for a win, but I just see it going that way. I don't know why, Dan. I just got that weird feeling.
And you're right to have that feeling, man. You're right to have that feeling because of the exact points that you've said. The thing that will tell me a lot about this Arsenal side is what we've learned and what we've learned from previous results. And I'm talking quickly, not long ago that we're talking about these things that went wrong for us. We've played a lot of away games this season already that we didn't do so well in last season. For example, Crystal Palace. We beat them 2-0. We lost to them 3-0 last year, right? We got battered. Last year, on the first game of the season, everybody laughed at us for losing to Brentford. We went and dominated them and won 3-0. For years under Eddie Howe, we used to get draws or lose games at Bournemouth's place. We've gone to the Vitality and we've taken comfortably 3 points in a 3-0 victory. But the first big test away was Old Trafford, and we showed naivety. Now, the naivety we showed was control the game, and once you get a goal, go all out to go and win. And then they caught us on the break twice, Man United, and we ended up losing the only game we've lost this season, 3-1. When we go into this game at Stamford Bridge, I need to see a controlled, composed performance away from home against a big side, because no matter how Chelsea are playing, they're a big side. Yeah. Just like Liverpool at Anfield would be a big team to go and beat, right? Even though they're playing poorly. So this is why it's going to be a massive test for us, because this is the first big game we've had in a while that's going to actually be considered away from home a big test, because Chelsea have got options. And I know that I wouldn't even be able to name the Chelsea 11 at the moment because Potter's still switching it around and experimenting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's really difficult. The danger of that is, for Arsenal perspective, is you don't actually know what you're going to get. It's very hard to coach against that, because you could be coaching all weekend about what he did at Salzburg and he flips it and goes and does what he did the week before. So for me, that could be quite difficult for us to try and coach for Arteta on the pitch. But when I look at what we've got on the pitch to offer and what you've got at the moment, I do fancy us just because of the way we're playing. And I'm not being cocky when I say that. I just think of the way that we're playing at the moment, top of the league. Factually, we've only dropped points at Southampton and lost to United. And the way Chelsea have just come off the back of a loss at Brighton would have hurt them. I do fancy our chances. But like you say, I can understand the confidence to say, we just got to have to take something. So even just don't lose the game. Just don't lose the game. Walk away from it and just say, we got a point, let's move on. So I get that as well, man.
Yeah, that's honestly where I'm at, and I've had a bit of backlash from Chelsea fans. Well, you know how this thing goes. Once you start giving your opinion, someone's always got something to say. I'm being told things like, "Oh, you're so negative. You're a plastic fan. Like, how can you want Chelsea to finish outside of the top 4?" You're not listening to what I said. No, but I want us to win the league every season. This is never about one. It's about realism. It's about looking at it with your own 2 eyes and assessing it the way you see things. And for me, we're nowhere near ready. We're absolutely nowhere near ready. But
I think that's realistic, man. And I was similarly. I want to win the title every year. I demand the best because I grew up winning everything, right?
yeah,
So I want to win it. Now, 18 years later, I still haven't got a league title, and it frustrates me every year. And I get this with Arsenal fans now. I want to win the title because right at the moment, we're still top of the league, 12, 13 games in. And everybody will sit there and go, but we only wanted 4th. Who did? Who only wanted 4th? I've been crying out for first place for years. Do you know what I'm saying? So when people come out as a management and say our target is to get Champions League football, some of the Arsenal fans think, let's just get 4th and let's get the party champagne out. I ain't getting no champagne up coming 4th. There's 3 people finished ahead of us. So when I look at that, I've got to be realistic. At the same time, I get your point that you want to be winning the title because you're Chelsea. And let's be honest, every year you should be title challengers with your last 15 years that you've had. But there's about being realistic and understanding that perhaps you're in a transition year. And that was what I was with Arteta. I was going to say, look, you've got 6 months here. You ended up winning the FA Cup, by the way. But I said, do what you need to do with this team because it's dead. It ain't getting nowhere near Champions League. But next year, I want to be demanding for something. And that was why I was so harsh on Arteta for the last couple of years, because I felt that with, a lot of money spent, a lot of backing, he kept failing at the last hurdles. And eighth and fifth is not something I recognise at Arsenal as being successful. So that's why I give him a lot of critics. When I look at what he's done now and this team that he's put together, you can't give him anything but praise. He's been fantastic this season, and so have most of our first team. So long may that continue, man.
Comment here, George Berry, big up yourself. Shout out Guni, but Arsenal, we're going to smash you on Sunday. Oh my god, it's starting
I don't think it'll be
already.
a smashing, bro. I don't think it'll be a smashing, bro.
Dan, any thoughts on Zinchenko being back and Martinelli saying, "I just need a penalty when asked about I just need a pen when asked about contract talks."
Yeah, interesting one about Zinchenko. I'll take that one first. So I was told, I speak to Lee Gunner about this because he was going nuts about it. Zinchenko has been apparently in training for like a long time. So it worries me as to why we haven't seen him yet. So I don't know how fit he's been or the long-term injury he's had, but it didn't seem like it was a long-term injury when he first got told that he was outside the team. But if he is back, then I think he's really important to how Arteta wants to play in terms of an inverted fullback. Now, my favourite player at the club is Kieran Tierney, and a lot of people are giving me a lot of stick for saying that Tierney should be playing ahead of him. Now, I think if you're looking at what a left-back does, Kieran Tierney is the best left-back at the club. If you want one
Yeah.
that fits into the system and the way that Arteta's playing, then Zinchenko is your best shout. Now, Tomiyasu, for me, at the moment, is getting ahead of Tierney in the side for two reasons. One, I think he inverts better than him. And two, he's fitter than him at the moment. And Kieran Tierney's been eased back in. Now, I hope that's the truth. I don't want it to be like that there's no long-term future for Kieran Tierney. But left-back's probably the only position that we have a massive amount of strength in depth in. And I think that's got to be a good thing for Arsenal. But I think if Zinchenko's fit, he's the one that plays. I expect to see Tomiyasu coming back in because it looks like he's the one that he's going with at the moment. But for me, Kieran Tierney's the one I go for. And just lastly, I'm hearing that Saka, Martinelli and Saliba will all sign contracts for Arsenal. And I don't know when it's going to happen, but it needs to happen, man. Like Martinelli and Saka, for me, I don't care if they go on 200k a week and sign a 4 or 5 year contract. They look ridiculously good for their age, man. I've never seen kids this good. And Saliba, I don't remember the last 21-year-old I saw this good, man, but it was probably Rio Ferdinand. I probably have to go back that long. Like, this kid is ridiculous, mate. I saw him against some French opposition last year, and you always think, looks good, but French league, PSG, and that's about it. Then I saw him come over here in pre-season, and I went, okay, you can defend. And then I said to Lee, the judges, I said, listen, I said, what have you seen in this guy in Orlando? And he's like, Dan, he is unreal, mate. I was like, really? He's like, honestly, mate, that good. Wait to see him and Jesus on the pitch and you'll see a different Arsenal. So, of course, like, he likes to go over the top sometimes, judges. So anyway, I started watching him and I thought, you know what? This Saliba kid, oh my God. Like, I've never seen a defender this good at that age, at 20, 21 years old. So if we can get these signed on long term, Saka, Martinelli and Saliba, yeah, I'll be a happy boy, man.
You see, people, this is what I was saying, because with Saliba, that's one, because I do like to follow the other leagues, and I've been watching this guy since Saint Etienne when he was playing next to our now centre back Fofana. And again, I wasn't purposely looking at him. It's just one of my guys that I used to play football with over in London, Claude, big up. He's a massive League One fan, and he's like, bro, this Wesley Fofana guy, he's going to make a move to the Premier League. And then I saw the guy playing next to him. I was like, who's the guy playing next to him? He's like, oh, that's Saliba. I said, this guy looks like he could be a generational centre-back, 100%. He's so comfortable with the ball. His positioning is great. He's big and strong, doesn't lose a tackle, times his tackles pretty well. Now, mistakes do happen when you're 21 years old and playing as a defender. It's a very high pressure position, and usually you get to your best of the best post 30. So it's a position where you mature, similar to goalkeeper. So you're going to see these mistakes happen. But the foundations and the basics that I've seen from him, if you guys keep him, I think over the next few years, he can be as important to you as what Van Dijk was at Liverpool. I'm dead serious.
Yeah. And you know what? I understand that. And you know what's mad is the story you've just told is so similar to the one that my mate does. He's actually a Parisian and he's always watching Ligue 1. Massive Arsenal fan though. And he said to me, I've got a couple of centre backs for you. Because at the time we had like Mustafi and David Luiz and Socrates here. And I said, look, we got to get some centre halves. Like there seems to be a lot over in France, like Upamecano and Kouyate were over at Leipzig at the time. And I'm like, I like the look of them. And he said to me, man, there's about 3 or 4 at the moment that I really rate. And I said, go on then, just chuck me some names so I can start watching these people. And he told me Gabriel at Lille. Right, so I looked at Gabriel at Lille and I thought he looks a bit of a monster. That's a colossus. That's the kind of defender we need, but we're going to need a ball playing defender next to him. He said to me, go and watch the kids at Saint Etienne. They look absolutely class. So I was like, okay, like don't know anything about them. He gave me the names that at the time I had no idea who they were. Obviously, it was Fofana and Saliba.
Yeah.
Anyway, I then said to my mate, that's an Arsenal fan, I've been told there's some highly rated centre halves at St Etienne. Anyway, he then texted me, and I was out on the night that they played, and he said, "Oh, I've just watched St Etienne. That Fofana guy that you mentioned, your mate mentioned, is absolutely sick. He's like so good." And I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah, honestly, mate, he looks absolutely amazing." So then I said, "Can I send you a picture because I need to watch him?" So I sent a picture of Fofana, and he went, "No, that's not him." But it was Wesley Fofana that I sent, right? So I'm like,
Yeah.
this says Wesley Fofana. And he's like, that's not the guy that I was watching, man. He was watching Saliba. So
Yeah.
he was watching Saliba thinking it was Fofana, going, wow, this guy's unreal. And obviously both of them now in the Premier League. So it's similar when you were saying that. I was thinking, is this guy going to mention the same story that I had, this guy? But it's so similar, man. They were both very highly rated, man, when they come on the scene.
Yeah, so you done well to get him. Was quite surprised when you loaned him out, but I kind of thought he's still quite young.
Likewise.
Maybe they're not convinced yet because he's still very young for a very mature position. But looks like that move done him favors over at Marseille because he absolutely smashed it over there. They bent over backwards to try and keep him, but you managed to keep hold of your player. Question from Guni: where does Nkunku fit in your front line? Who misses out? Sign the ting all three. George, I'll be 100% real with you. Bear man can bounce, fam. Yeah, that's my answer. Bear man from my front three can bounce right about now. The only two that I would want to keep, yeah, in that front three is Aubameyang and Broya. Obviously, Raheem Sterling because he's a new signing. The rest of them, I'm not bothered whether they stay or go. Nkunku displaces every single one of them anyway. Every single one of them anyway. Even the names that I mentioned that I wanted to keep. The way he's been playing football, assists, goals, and some might say, "Oh, but it's Bundesliga tax." There's certain intangibles from football players that will translate to every single league, and that's what I look out for with these players. One of them, the first thing I always look out for: touch. How is it under pressure? Not under pressure, and literally in some of the biggest games, is it still there? He's got it 100%. Decision making, he's got it 100%. Is he ice cold in front of goal? 100%. His goal record speaks for itself. Does he link up the play well? Excellent. He does it brilliant. Why? Because he's technically gifted. He has an excellent touch. He sticks that ball wherever he wants it the first time he gets that ball, plays his teammates in excellently. He is the perfect player. But what I will say to you, George, he will not make a revolutionary difference to this Chelsea squad until we sign that midfielder. I'm going to keep singing that song. You see, Caps knows. Caps knows. Yeah, you see, they'll know. You see, listen, it's got to a point where we can't even sign one anymore. We have to sign two. Because if we sign one, we're going to run into the Fabinho problem, which is you run this player to the ground and then they're finished before their time. So some people are saying, or they're just playing off on 80%, 70% the whole time. Seen it with Kovacic. Unfortunately, we've done it to Kante to a point where he's so injury prone that he can't even put 4 or 5 games together. We've destroyed him. That's why we need to sign both. For me, Alvarez is a must, and so is Declan Rice. Sangare is a good player, 100%. It's just that knowing what Chelsea are trying to spend this summer, Alvarez is one, the cheaper option. And two, he wants to come to the club. Sangare signed a new contract last season when teams were going in for him. And Declan Rice is Declan Rice. It's a saga that's been going on since forever.
It's actually boring. It's actually boring now, isn't it? The Rice one, man, for me. It's like, just go sign him if you want him. Do you know what I'm saying? But for me, like those options there, I've always been a massive fan of Ibrahim Sangare since his Toulouse days. I thought this guy was an absolute monster and a beast. And I think he's still only about 24, 25, so he's not old. He also likes to put a foot in, and he's been playing for PSV, which is a team that I've now seen twice in the last couple of weeks, playing them in Europa League. And he's an absolute, like, beast in the middle there, man, and he loves to put in a tackle. So I don't think either of those will be a shocking decision to buy them. And let's be honest, man, you ain't got you ain't got much at the moment in that midfield. So
Yeah, big
two of
facts.
those would do.
Big facts. And you know, when I saw that game, because I purposely watched the PSV games for Sangare, because he's somebody that I heard of only through us being linked to him through like the press and that. So I wasn't really able to. But that ball in particular that he played for Gakpo that was disallowed, I did not know he had that in his locker.
Yeah, man, he's got some vision and creativity. Like, he's not really a creative player such as a Bernardo Silva type, of course,
Yeah.
but he's got some passing ability. He's a real he's got his presence and his physical attributes, but he can play, man. I've been a fan of him. I really liked him. And the other one I liked who's not hit it at all well at Leicester is Samari. I really thought Samari was going to come into this league and beast it, but he hasn't. But yeah, for me, Sangari is a good player, man. But Rice, I don't know, bruv. I just think that would have happened by now if it was Gunu. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if this is going to be one that just keeps going on forever, and West Ham
West Ham. It's West Ham.
yeah,
It's gonna.
exactly.
The thing is they're delaying the inevitable. But you know, if I was in their position, I would do the same, because Declan Rice is the difference between a European position for them and just being shit again. You know what I mean? No disrespect to West Ham, but it is what it is. He's that good of a player for that team. So, from what I understand, from what I've been told, is that West Ham would rather liquidate than sell Declan Rice to us while they've got the power. Because if you remember the last time they sold us an English midfielder, what went on to happen with him? The best, you don't understand, like one of the best ever English midfielders to ever play in the Premier League.
Facts.
So they can see that's, well, I'm not saying Declan Rice will have a Lampard impact. They're two different players. But certainly from my standpoint, he fits the criteria of what we need down to a T. And is also very versatile. Like right now, West Ham, they don't use him as the CDM. But we saw in his earlier years, he played there and he was comfortable, played with his eyes closed. Now they use him more of a box-to-box. But that's just because of just how rounded he is as a football player. People don't realize he's very technical. He's deceptively quick as well. His decision on the pass is good. But he's like every other young player. Like, you have your ups and downs. But for me, I've seen enough of him to say, yeah, I want him to come to the club. But again, like I said, him on his own definitely won't be enough. But in terms of transfers, I know we've kind of gone off topic. This is meant to be like a preview for Chelsea and Arsenal. But this is what happens when you talk football, innit? You go into different topics. And we've got several other Arsenal fans that are going to be joining us this week. I might even have to get you back on, Dan, when Troops and Zar jump on. I think that's tomorrow, actually. Yeah, I think that's tomorrow. So if you've got time tomorrow evening, it will be me, you, Troops, Zar, and Matisse. So we will be outnumbered. Yeah, you see, giving you like the hospitality of the extra number.
Mate.
So that should be good. But in terms of transfer targets for Arsenal, because I've not asked, what players are you looking at? What positions are you looking at the minute?
I think everybody knows that our midfield is extremely weak in terms of strength and depth. It's very strong in terms of a first 11. I think with Granit Xhaka's improvement, I think it shocked everybody, mate. He's been ridiculously good, unbelievable. And Erdegaard and Partey add to that quality as well. But other than that, mate, if those three get injured, we're stuck with a midfield of Vieira, Lokonga and El Neni. And that just is nowhere near good enough if you want to be going to silverware and a title challenge like we're talking about at the moment. So for me, two midfielders are needed. The links are Danilo from Brazil, who's a 21-year-old defensive midfielder that Edu likes a lot. He's highly rated. And when Brazil pick their team, I know that hasn't been done yet, he's the only one over in Brazil that's getting in. All the others are European players. So that must mean a lot for them to only select him from that, considering they've got a lot of players in that position. Bruno Guimaraes.
He's a central mid, you said, yeah?
Yeah, CDM, man. So
CDM,
which is what we need. It's what we need. The other position, of course, that people are talking about is a centre midfield, one to kind of replace Xhaka. Now, I know we've got Zinchenko who can slot in there, but at the moment, we're having problems with him needed at left back and also his injuries himself. So I think another centre midfielder is needed. Yuri Tielemans is a guy that just won't go away. I think with 6 months left on his contract, he's gettable, but whether Leicester want to sell him or just keep him now to the end of the season, I'm not so sure. The other name mentioned is Milinkovic-Savic from Lazio, but I believe that to be a summer move if it will happen at all, because they're asking for mad money. The other positions are the front three. We need something that's better than Eddie Nketiah, mate. And if Saka gets injured, we really are going to struggle because he's one of our most important players. So I look at that and think perhaps a CDM, a centre mid, and a front man is needed. That front man, I feel personally like it needs to be a different profiled centre forward. I know that we've got the Eddie Nketiahs and Jesus, which people like, energy, intensity. I get that, work rate. But we really do need a centre forward that's going to bring us something different. People talk about Mitrovic. I don't see that one happening. People talk about Ivan Toney. Personally, I think that would not be a January move. I think Brentford would be
Summer.
silly to get rid of him, man. That would be summer. I actually like the lad you used to have, man. I would have taken him tomorrow. I like Tammy Abraham a lot. I think he's a different profile striker. I think he's banging them in. I think he's an aerial threat. I think he can link up play. He's got pace. He's an athlete, powerful. And last season, I think was the highest goal scorer in England, higher than Harry Kane. So for me, I would take somebody like that. But again, a summer move. So it's
He's
going
an
to be
Arsenal fan too, you
interesting.
know.
Massive gooner, massive gooner. Yeah, Troops told me that. So I think when you look at it, right, the one player that people keep talking about that would be available in January, other than Danilo and Tielemans that I've mentioned for different reasons, is Wilfried Zaha, who's a massive gooner, like massive
I
gooner.
don't get why he gets so much disrespect, because this guy, I feel like he's got a lot to offer to these top teams, you know. Because people
100.
don't realize that the Premier League is a squad game. Yeah, this guy, he would be an asset to any one of these teams, my opinion. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go on.
Nah, listen, I was gonna say pretty similar. Other than the fact that people say he doesn't fit the profile that we need. And the reason he doesn't fit the profile is because he's 29 years old. Now, we've got enough young players. We need people for now. We're going for a title here. Apparently,
Dan
people
knows his
keep telling
football.
me. So go and get somebody who's ready now. Why do we need another 19-year-old? We've got Marquinhos. We've got Fabio Vieira, who's 21. We need somebody who's ready now. And unfortunately, mate, for whatever reason, there's a lot of Arsenal fans that are obsessed with anyone being under the age of 23. They've got to come in for Arsenal. I'm happy with Danilo because he's an upgrade from what I can tell anyway on Lukonga. I'll be happy with Tielemans because he's fine for when Xhaka is in and out the side. Zaha, for me, I mean, listen, he would definitely rival across positions of that front three. And if Jesus was out, I'd rather have Zaha and Martinelli through the middle than Eddie Nketiah, mate. So I think that would be really good. If you ask me realistically, though, Guni, what I think is going to happen, I think it'll be 1-2 tops that we get. I don't think it's going to be this mad thing where we go and sign 3-4 players. I just don't see that happening.
It's January, bruv. It doesn't happen. All of
Exactly.
that stuff, your top targets, you're gonna get them in the summer. Anything that you get in January is either a squad booster or you're extremely lucky, like a Vidic or a Suarez at them signings there. They don't happen every January. Didn't you get a Aubameyang in January as well?
Yeah, we did, man.
Yeah, you see,
We got Aubameyang and Arshavin are the two biggest that we got in January.
yeah, so you see, these are deals that are very few and far between that happen in January. But for me, I honestly think for you guys, if you sign another CDM, because Thomas Partey, I know he has his injury issues as well. You guys sign another CDM, like you said with the striker, Ivan Toney, big up caps as well.
Yeah,
Tony,
I'd love Tony.
yeah, because for me, it's not. It touches on what you were saying about having a different type of profile. But with Ivan Toney, for me, I think he's just a full package. I think he could do everything that you ask him to do. Even the hold-up playing stuff and playing with his back to goal, he does it at a very high level, where he stretches out the channels as well. He is a proper striker, proper striker. So I think that would be good for you. I would also say your right back position, I would get some more depth there. I think Ben White's been excellent playing for you guys. He's been good there, but you definitely need a number 2 and one more centre back. You do need seniority, because I had this conversation. I want to say Troops, but I don't want to put words in his mouth and get it wrong. But somebody was saying, you know, Chelsea are signing so many youth players. That's the direction to go. We shouldn't be signing. But they're not taking into consideration, we've got Thiago Silva is 38 years old, right? And he's very much an exception to the rule, where like he is one of the most gifted football players of our generation. And he leads that through example. His aura is there. And I've said many times, that's one of the reasons, even when Tuchel was in charge, why our defense was as good as what it was. It's because of him stepping in to that midfielder marshalling it. There's him. You've also got your Kovacic's, who's won several Champions League. So you've got players that have been there and done it. Although we're not performing, there's still like the leadership and the example there. It's like seniority and experience is key, especially when you're teaching these younger players. Because now imagine, like, for example, if you've got, I don't know, let's say Benzema was for sale and you got him, right? Some might say, oh, his age. First of all, he's still a gunman. But do you understand the wealth of knowledge that he's going to pass on to your already generational talented youth going forward?
100, man. 100.
These are the things, the intangibles that people don't see. That's why we need senior experience. But Dan, do you know what? I've actually been waffling for a minute now. We've got a Champions League game about to kick off in 2 minutes against Zagreb. I would love to have you back on with the rest of the lads if you're available tomorrow.
Calm, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll drop you a line, bro. I'll drop you a
Yeah,
line.
so people that are watching tomorrow, there's gonna be a huge live on this channel. It's gonna be myself, Matisse, Dan will be joining us, Zar and Troops as well. So listen, put on your army helmets, yeah, strap on your bulletproof vests, because you already know Troops is gonna come with war. Yeah, he's gonna trigger everyone in the group. Do you know what I mean? I'm gonna try and remain as cordial as possible, but he makes it very difficult. But it's going to be a fun one, people. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Also, like I said at the beginning of the video, Dan already shows you why he had to come on the Man Knows Football channel, because his knowledge is elite. Excellent stuff. Love talking football with this guy. Very honest. Although he's an Arsenal fan, sees things and speaks things very honestly. Take the rival glasses off. So if you want to hear more of that, the 12 Man podcast is where you can find him. I know you've got a pod that you do with the gaffer, Lee Judges as well. Several. Do you know what? Instead of me listing them off, Dan, let the people know where they can find you, bro. Let them know.
Oh, man. Listen, first of all, thank you for having me on, man. And make sure that the chat smash the like button and subscribe to Man Knows Football. You've got to get Guni up to he's doing mad things, by the way. Your subs are mad, so keep that up, my guy. If you do want to come follow me, you can find me on socials at DanArsenal87 on Instagram and Twitter. And if you do want to come follow my podcast, then please do. It's at Football's 12th Man podcast. It's all football talk. It's not just Arsenal stuff, but I do a lot with AFTV and, of course, Lee Judges TV as well. Me and him, I'm the co-host on that channel. So all things Arsenal over there, all things football at 12th Man podcast. Please come and follow me, man. Cheers for that, Guni.
Nah, no problem, man. There you have it, people. Thank you very much for joining. Like Dan told you, smash that like button, subscribe if you are new, help us get closer to 14,000. Switch on that notification bell so you can see when the videos are coming out. This week is going to be mad. You're not going to want to miss it. But people, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, please make sure you stay safe. Up the Chelsea. And I will be back after the game today giving my thoughts. So peace out, people.